It was a bloodbath. That's the only way I can describe what happened in our company's executive boardroom that day. 3 months of my life. Countless all-nighters. And one password later, I watched as my backstabbing coworker's career imploded in real time, and I regret absolutely nothing. Have you ever had someone steal your work and claim it as their own? Comment below, because what happened next in my story might give you the revenge blueprint you've been looking for. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Angela, 29 years old, and what I'm about to share completely changed how I protect my work and my worth in the corporate world. After my coworker stole the project I poured my soul into for 3 months straight, she thought she had won, but the password-protected demo was my secret weapon. 1. Melissa swooped in and claimed my project as her own to our boss. It all started when our marketing agency landed the biggest client in our company's history, a Fortune 500 tech giant that could put our small firm on the map. The energy in the office was electric when our CEO announced they needed someone innovative and bold to lead the campaign. I still remember how my hand shot up in that meeting. After 2 years of being overlooked for major projects, creating endless social media posts while watching others advance their careers, this was finally my moment. When our boss Kevin actually picked me, I couldn't believe it. "Angela has been showing a lot of promise," he said. "Let's give her a shot." The look on Melissa's face, me, supposed mentor and friend, was one I'll never forget. A flash of something dark crossed her features before she plastered on that perfect smile she always wore with her perfect blonde hair and designer outfits that somehow stayed immaculate, even during 14-hour workdays. For 3 months, I poured everything into this project. I'm talking canceling dates, missing my best friend's birthday, and surviving on takeout and energy drinks. My apartment turned into a war zone of sticky notes and coffee cups. I stayed at the office until midnight most nights, often falling asleep at my desk, waking up with keyboard imprints on my face. The campaign I created wasn't just good, it was revolutionary. An immersive experience, combining virtual reality with real-world elements, centered around an interactive demo I coded myself, learning new programming languages along the way. This wasn't just a project, it was my masterpiece, my ticket to the promotion I'd been chasing since day one. Melissa would occasionally stop by my desk, asking seemingly innocent questions about my progress. "Just want to make sure you're not in over your head," she'd say with that concerned tone that never quite reached her eyes. I gave vague answers, not because I was being secretive, but because I wanted the final reveal to be perfect. The weekend before the big presentation to the executives, I came into the empty office to perfect every detail. I uploaded all my files to our shared drive, but password protected the interactive demo not out of paranoia, but because it was still rendering final elements. That Sunday night, I finally felt ready. I sent an email to Kevin with the presentation attached, explaining that the interactive demo would be ready for Tuesday's executive meeting. For the first time in my career, I felt truly proud of what I'd created. Then Monday morning hit me like a truck. I woke up with a raging 102-degree fever. My entire body ached like I'd been hit by a bus. I could barely lift my head, let alone get dressed. I called Kevin, my voice barely above a whisper, explaining I needed 1 sick day, but would absolutely be there for Tuesday's presentation. By evening, the medicine had kicked in enough that I checked my work email. That's when I saw I-10 email from Melissa to the entire department, including Kevin and our CEO. "Excited to present my campaign for the new client tomorrow. I've been working tirelessly on this for months and can't wait to show everyone what I've come up with." I blinked repeatedly, certain my fever was making me hallucinate. Attached to her email were my files, my designs, my strategy documents. But with one critical difference: where my name had been, hers now appeared. That's when the panic attack hit. My chest tightened until I couldn't breathe. The room started spinning as tears streamed down my face. How could she do this? How could she steal 3 months of my life? My future? My promotion? Despite feeling like death, I dragged myself to the office in sweatpants, hair unwashed, looking like something even the cat wouldn't drag in. Through the glass walls of the conference room, I saw Melissa sitting with Kevin and our CEO, gesturing animatedly at my presentation on the screen. Just a few final touches tomorrow, before the client meeting, Melissa was saying as I stumbled in. All three heads turned toward me. "Angela, should you be out of bed?" Kevin looked genuinely concerned, which only confused me more. "That's my project," I said, pointing weakly at the screen. "Melissa is presenting my work." There was an awkward silence. Then Melissa laughed, a light, tinkling sound that somehow cut through me like glass. "Angela, I think your fever is making you confused. This is the campaign I've been developing. Remember? You've been working on the social media assets for the Wilson account." I looked at Kevin, waiting for him to correct her, to say that he knew this was my project, because I'd been updating him weekly for 3 months. But he just looked uncomfortable, avoiding my eyes. "Angela, maybe we should talk about this tomorrow when you're feeling better," he suggested. "Check the metadata on the files," I said desperately. "Look at the original upload dates. It's all there." Our CEO sighed heavily. "Let's not make this complicated. Melissa has done excellent work here, and the presentation is tomorrow. Angela, go home and rest. We can sort this out after the client meeting." I stood there, swaying slightly, unable to believe what was happening. Melissa wouldn't quite meet my eyes, but there was a small, satisfied smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "The interactive demo," I finally said. "She won't be able to access it without the password." Melissa's smile faltered for just a second before returning full force. "Oh, I've already figured out a workaround for that little glitch. Don't worry." I left the office in a daze, tears streaming down my face. Back at home, I collapsed into bed, my fever now compounded by rage and helplessness. That night, as I tossed and turned, one thought kept circling through my mind: the password. No matter what workaround Melissa claimed to have found, she couldn't access the full interactive demo without my password. The next morning, my fever had broken, replaced by a cold, clear determination. I showered, put on my sharpest outfit, and did my makeup with precision. If I was going to reclaim what was mine, I would do it looking my absolute best. I arrived at the office an hour before the executive meeting. Melissa was already there, frantically clicking through the presentation, practicing her speech. When she saw me, her expression flickered between surprise and annoyance. "Feeling better?" she asked with fake concern. "Much," I replied, with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Just came in to wish you luck with my presentation." She lowered her voice to a harsh whisper. "Look, Angela, this is just how it works in this industry. You need to be more assertive if you want to get ahead. I saw an opportunity and I took it. It's just business, nothing personal." I leaned in close, maintaining my smile, in case anyone was watching. "You're right, Melissa. It is just business. And I can't wait to see how you handle the interactive demo without the password." Her face paled slightly. "I told you. I found a workaround." I patted her arm. "Good luck with that." The executive boardroom was intimidating on a normal day, but that Tuesday morning, it felt like an arena. The massive glass table gleamed under soft, recessed lighting, surrounded by black leather chairs occupied by every important person in our company. Our CEO, James, sat at the head of the table, flanked by our CFO and the heads of every department. Client representatives joined virtually on the massive screen at the end of the room, their faces serious and expectant. I slipped into the room quietly and took a seat in the back corner. I wanted a perfect view of what was about to unfold. Melissa stood at the front of the room, looking polished in a navy power suit, her blonde hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She exuded confidence as she connected her laptop to the presentation system. Kevin caught my eye from across the room and frowned slightly, clearly surprised to see me there. I gave him a small wave and settled back in my chair. My heart was racing, but not from anxiety anymore. This was anticipation. "Good morning, everyone," Melissa began, her voice smooth and professional. "I'm thrilled to present our campaign concept for Tech Fusion's new product launch." The first slide appeared on the Screen Me slide, with my design, but Melissa's name in the corner where mine should have been. A hot flash of anger surged through me, but I took a deep breath and waited. "As you'll see, I've developed a completely fresh approach to this launch," Melissa continued. "Something that breaks the traditional marketing mold." I watched as she clicked through my slides, explaining my concepts, sharing my research findings. With each slide, my blood boiled hotter. She'd been thorough in her thistevery. Single file had been scrubbed of my name, my signature design elements subtly altered just enough that only I would notice the difference. The executives were nodding along, clearly impressed. The client representatives were leaning forward, engaged and excited. Melissa was glowing with unearned triumph as she smoothly explained complex marketing strategies I'd spent weeks developing. "This campaign centers around what I'm calling the immersive experience," she said, using the exact phrase I'd coined during a late-night brainstorming session. "It combines virtual reality elements with real-world activations to create something truly revolutionary." I almost laughed out loud at her audacity. She was using my words verbatim, words I'd written in my project brief, words I'd practiced in front of my bathroom mirror at 2 a.m. while my roommate slept. The most infuriating part? She was good at presenting. If I hadn't known this was my work, I might have been impressed by her delivery, her apparent depth of knowledge, the way she anticipated and answered questions before they were even asked. It was like watching an actress perform a role she'd studied meticulously. The campaign includes targeted digital ads, influencer partnerships, and guerrilla marketing tactics, Melissa explained, clicking to a slide showing projection mapping on city buildings. My idea, inspired by a tech conference I'd attended on my own time and dime. But the centerpiece is an interactive demonstration that allows potential customers to experience the product in a completely immersive environment. This was it. The moment was approaching. I sat up straighter, my eyes locked on Melissa's face. "I'd like to show you that interactive demo now," she said, clicking to the next slide. The password prompt appeared on the screen. A simple black box against a white background. I'd designed it to be unobtrusive, professional, nothing that would hint at the complexity that lay behind it. Melissa didn't miss a beat. "Just 1 second while I access this," she said smoothly, typing something quickly. The prompt flashed, "Read incorrect password." She tried again, her movements still controlled, but slightly more hurried. Again, the prompt flashed red. "Technical difficulties," she said with a light laugh. "Let me just." She tried a third time, her perfectly manicured nails clicking against the keyboard with increasing force. The room had gone quiet, the easy flow of the presentation disrupted by this unexpected hitch. "Is there a problem?" James asked from the head of the table. No problem," Melissa assured him, her voice higher than normal. "Just a small glitch. The system sometimes requires multiple password attempts for security purposes." That was a lie, of course. There was no security feature requiring multiple attempts. There was just one password, a complex string of characters known only to me. I watched as she tried a fourth time, then a fifth. With each failure, tiny cracks appeared in her confident facade. A bead of sweat formed at her temple. Her smile became more fixed, less natural. "Perhaps we could move on to another section while you sort that out," suggested one of the client representatives from the screen. "Actually," Melissa said, an edge of desperation creeping into her voice, "the demo is really the highlight of the presentation. It brings together all the elements I've been describing. It's essential to understanding the full vision." Of course it was essential. I'd designed the entire campaign around that interactive experience. Without it, the presentation was just theory and pretty picturesque impressive, but not revolutionary. "How long will it take to resolve this issue?" asked the CFO, checking his watch pointedly. Melissa's eyes darted around the room, landing on me for a split second before quickly looking away. I'm not sure. It was working perfectly yesterday. Another lie. She'd never had access to it. How could she know if it was working? The tension in the room was palpable now. The executives were shifting in their seats, the client representatives exchanging glances on screen. The seamless, impressive presentation had hit a wall, and Melissa was floundering. Perhaps one of our IT team members could help? James suggested, reaching for the phone on the conference table. That won't be necessary, Melissa said quickly, her composure slipping further. I can figure this out. It's my project after all. Those 5 words, "it's my project after all," were what finally pushed me to my feet. I'd been content to watch her struggle, to let her lie unravel naturally. But hearing her claim ownership so boldly, so brazenly, ignited something fierce inside me. Actually, I said, my voice ringing out clearly in the hushed room, I believe I can help with that. All heads turned toward me. Kevin looked alarmed. James looked confused. Melissa looked like she might be sick. Angela, James said with a frown, I thought you were out ill. I'm feeling much better today, I replied, walking slowly toward the front of the room. My heels clicked rhythmically against the polished floor, the sound emphasizing the dramatic tension of the moment. In fact, I've made a remarkable recovery. I stopped beside Melissa, who had gone completely rigid. Up close, I could see the mascara clumping at the corners of her eyes, the foundation cracking slightly around her mouth where stress had caused her to purse her lips repeatedly. Angela, she hissed under her breath, what do you think you're doing? I smiled at her, then turned to address the room. I apologize for the interruption, but I believe I can resolve this password issue. You know the password? James asked, his brow furrowed. Of course, I replied calmly. I created it. The silence that followed was deafening. Melissa's breathing had become shallow and rapid beside me. What exactly are you saying, Angela? James asked carefully. This was my moment, the culmination of 3 months of work. 1 day of betrayal, and a night of fevered planning. I could have simply blurted out the accusation, told them all that Melissa had stolen my work. But that would have turned it into a she said situation, my word against hers. I needed to be smarter than that. I'm saying that I'd be happy to demonstrate the interactive experience that forms the centerpiece of this campaign, I said. The campaign that I've been working on for the past 3 months. Melissa finally found her voice. That's not, you can't just, she sputtered, her composure completely shattered now. I turned to her, my voice gentle but loud enough for everyone to hear. Melissa, I understand you were trying to help by presenting my work while I was ill yesterday. That was thoughtful, but I'm here now, so I can take it from here. It was the perfect trap. If she admitted she'd been presenting my work, she'd be admitting to the theft. If she denied it, she'd have to explain why she couldn't access the demo that was supposedly hers. The room had gone so quiet, you could hear the gentle hum of the air conditioning. Kevin was staring at his hands. James was looking between Melissa and me, his expression unreadable. I don't understand, one of the client representatives said from the screen. Whose campaign is this? Before Melissa could respond, I stepped forward and typed the password into the prompt. The screen unlocked immediately, revealing the interactive demo I'd created, my magnum opus, my proof. This is my campaign, I said simply. I can demonstrate how it works, if you'd like. James looked at Melissa, who had gone deathly pale. Melissa, what's going on here? She opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. No words came out. Perhaps I can clarify, I said, opening the properties panel on one of the presentation files. If you look at the original creation date and author of these files, you'll see my name. You'll also notice that they were all modified yesterday evening when I was homesick with a fever of 102 degrees. The evidence was damning and irrefutable. Metadata doesn't lie. Melissa finally found her voice, though it was barely above a whisper. I can explain. But what explanation could there possibly be? She'd stolen my work, removed my name, and tried to pass it off as her own. There was no gray area here, no misunderstanding that could be clarified. James's face had hardened. "I think we need to take a short break," he said, standing up. "Melissa, Angela, me office. Now, everyone else will reconvene in 15 minutes. As we filed out of the boardroom, I caught Kevin's eye. He looked away quickly, his face flushed with what I hoped was shame. He'd known. Maybe not explicitly, but he'd known something wasn't right, and he'd chosen to look the other way. In James's office, the truth came out in a torrent. Melissa alternated between denials, excuses, and tearful apologies. She claimed she'd only been trying to help, that she thought I was too ill to present, that she'd meant to give me credit. Each lie fell apart under the weight of the evidence. The systematically removed credits, the email claiming ownership, the practiced presentation that had clearly been prepared well before I'd called in sick. "I've never seen anything like this in my entire career," James said finally, his voice heavy with disappointment. "Melissa, please clean out your desk. Your employment is terminated, effective immediately. Tara will contact you about the details." She left without looking at me, her shoulders hunched, her perfect posture broken at last. James turned to me, his expression softening. "Angela, I owe you an apology. This should never have happened. Are you feeling well enough to continue the presentation?" I nodded, still processing what had just happened. I'd expected a confrontation, maybe even an acknowledgement of my work. I hadn't expected Melissa to be fired on the spot. "Yes," I said, finding my voice again. "I'm ready." When we returned to the boardroom, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. Everyone could sense something major had happened during our 15-minute break, though only James knew the full story. The client representatives on the screen looked confused, having been left in digital limbo during our absence. "Thank you for your patience," James said, addressing the room. "We've had a change in presenters. Angela will be taking over from here." All eyes turned to me as I took my position at the front of the room. I felt a strange calm wash over me. After months of work and the roller coaster of the past 24 hours, this moment, my moment, Thad, finally arrived. "Hello, everyone," I began, my voice steady and clear. "I'm Angela Mitchell, and I'm the creator of the campaign you've been seeing today. I apologize for the confusion earlier." I could feel Kevin's eyes boring into me from across the room. He looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. Good. He should feel uncomfortable. His willingness to look the other way had nearly cost me everything. Before I continue with the presentation, I'd like to restart the interactive demo from the beginning, so you can experience it as intended. I entered my password, and the screen came to life with a stunning 3D animation. The product emerging from darkness, surrounded by glowing particles that coalesced into a cityscape. The executive's eyes widened. This wasn't just a PowerPoint with fancy transitions. This was something they'd never seen before. "What you're seeing is just the introduction to our immersive experience," I explained, navigating through the demo with practiced ease. "The actual consumer version will be accessible via smartphone, tablet, or VR headset." I guided them through virtual cityscapes where the product seamlessly integrated with daily life, showing rather than telling how it would revolutionize the user experience. The room was silent, except for occasional murmurs of appreciation. "Now for the part I'm most excited about," I said, clicking to a section labeled Personalized Pathways. "This is where we truly innovate beyond traditional marketing." I turned to face the client representatives on the screen. "Could one of you provide me with your industry and a particular challenge you're facing?" The marketing director from Tech Fusion leaned forward. "Healthcare integration, specifically patient data security." I nodded and entered those parameters into the demo. The screen transformed into a hospital setting, with the product now showcasing its security features, displaying precisely how it would address the specific concerns he'd mentioned. "This demo is programmed to generate customized experiences based on industry, challenge, and user preference," I explained. "We've built in over 200 possible combinations, ensuring that every potential client sees exactly how the product solves their unique problems. The room erupted in spontaneous applause. Even James looked stunned. This wasn't just a good campaign, it was revolutionary, exactly what I'd promised it would be. The complete marketing strategy extends beyond this demo, I continued, bringing up the implementation timeline I'd created. We've mapped out a 6-month rollout that includes targeted digital campaigns, influencer partnerships, and immersive pop-up experiences in key markets. As I walked them through each phase of the strategy, I could see the executives exchanging impressed glances. The client representatives were nodding enthusiastically, occasionally typing notes or whispering to each other. When I finished the formal presentation, I opened the floor for questions. They came rapid fire, and I answered each one with confidence and precision. After all, this was my project. I knew every detail, every contingency, every potential challenge and solution. I have to say, the Tech Fusion CEO said when the Q&A finally wound down, "This is the most innovative campaign proposal we've seen. You've managed to capture exactly what makes our product special and communicate it in a way that feels both cutting-edge and accessible." Pride swelled in my chest. This was the validation I'd been working toward for months. Recognition, not just from my company, but from the client who would bring this campaign to life. "We'd like to move forward," he continued. "James, can we discuss timelines and budgets this afternoon?" James beamed. "Absolutely. And Angela will be leading the implementation team, of course." Those words, "Angela will be leading," were the sweetest victory. Not only had my work been recognized, but I'd been elevated to a position of leadership that would have taken years to achieve through the normal channels. As the meeting adjourned, the executives filed out, many stopping to congratulate me personally. Kevin lingered by the door, clearly waiting to speak with me. When everyone else had left, he approached, his expression a mixture of shame and contrition. "Angela, I owe you an apology," he began. "When Melissa said she was presenting the campaign, I assumed you two had worked it out between yourselves. I should have checked with you directly." I looked at him evenly. "Yes, you should have." He winced at my directness. "You're right. I made assumptions, and they were wrong. The work you did, it's absolutely brilliant. I've never seen anything like that interactive demo." I allowed myself a small smile. "Thank you. I want you to know that your position is being reevaluated," he continued. James was impressed, not just with the campaign, but with how you handled yourself today. There's talk of a promotion, possibly, to creative director. Creative director. The position I'd been eyeing since I joined the company. The position that, until yesterday, had seemed years away. "That would be appropriate," I said, not wanting to appear too eager despite the excitement bubbling inside me. Kevin nodded. "It would be, and well-deserved." He paused, looking uncomfortable. "And about Melissa?" "I'd prefer not to discuss her," I said firmly. "Of course." He hesitated, then extended his hand. "Congratulations again, Angela. Truly remarkable work." I shook his hand, feeling the shift in our dynamic. I was no longer just another team member he supervised. I was someone who had proven her value beyond question. After Kevin left, I remained in the boardroom alone, taking a moment to process everything that had happened. Just 24 hours ago, I'd been burning with fever, devastated by betrayal, uncertain if my career at this company had a future. Now I stood on the precipice of a promotion, with the respect of the executives and a major client campaign to lead. I gathered my materials, powered down the presentation system, and walked out with my head held high. As I passed Melissa's desk, I saw her clearing out her personal items, supervised by security. Our eyes met briefly. There was anger in hers, but something else too, a grudging respect, perhaps. She had underestimated me, assumed I would roll over and accept defeat. She had failed to recognize that passion and integrity, when pushed to their limits, could be more powerful than her calculated ambition. I didn't stop to speak with her. There was nothing left to say. Instead, I continued to my own desk, which would soon be relocated to a larger office with a door and a window tangible symbols of my new status. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend. "How did it go? Did you confront her?" I smiled as I typed my reply. "Better than I could have imagined. I'll tell you everything over drinks tonight. My treat." As I gathered my things to leave for the day, James had insisted I take the afternoon off to rest and recover. I noticed a small crowd gathered by the reception desk. The receptionist was arranging a massive bouquet of flowers in a crystal vase. "Those just arrived for you," she called when she saw me. "From Tech Fusion." I opened the card tucked among the blooms. "To Angela. Thank you for showing us what innovation truly means. We couldn't be more excited to bring your vision to life. Looking forward to working closely with you, the Tech Fusion team." It was at that moment that the full weight of what had happened finally hit me. I had not only reclaimed what was rightfully mine, but I had turned potential disaster into triumph. I had stood my ground, spoken my truth, and been rewarded not just with justice, but with advancement. As I walked out of the building with the flowers in my arms, I realized that sometimes the worst moments in our professional lives, the betrayals, the setbacks, the injustices can become catalysts for our greatest victories. All it takes is the courage to stand up for yourself and the patience to wait for the perfect moment. Oh, and a password that only you know. So, to anyone who's ever had their work stolen, their ideas appropriated, their contributions minimized, take it from me. Protect your work. Document everything. And when the time comes to stand up for yourself, do it with unshakable confidence. The truth has a way of revealing itself, especially when you help it along. And if you're wondering what happened to Melissa, last I heard, she's working at a much smaller agency across town. Apparently, they've implemented a very strict policy about project ownership and file access. I wonder why. As for me, 6 months later, I'm settling into my role as creative director with a team of talented designers who know exactly whose name belongs on their work. The Tech Fusion campaign launched to industry acclaim, winning 3 major marketing awards, and, more importantly, exceeding all sales projections for the client. Sometimes I think about that password, the 16 random characters that ultimately saved my career. It was such a small thing, really. A simple precaution that became my salvation. Now, I make sure every member of my team knows how to protect their work, not out of paranoia, but out of professional wisdom. Because in this industry, your ideas are your currency. And sometimes, the only thing standing between success and theft is a password that only you know.